Good morning, golf fans. It's your boy, Gsluke, here with our round 2 live stream for the Sentry. I'm still waking up. It's a little earlier than I like getting up here on a Friday, but hopefully everyone's got their coffee, is ready to talk some Friday action at the Sentry. We'll go over props, DFS, whatever you guys want to talk down in chat. So feel free, go ahead, say hi first off. Let us know you're down there in the live chat. Then afterwards, any questions that come up at any point, go ahead and let me know, right? It can be for main slate, showdown today, outright betting, whatever you guys want to talk about, this time is for you. And we'll make sure we touch on all the major headlines for today's action. So first off, we got Nick down there. Long time no see. Hopefully you're doing well down there, Nick. And we've got Travis, who unfortunately must have bet against Morikawa yesterday. So I understand if you don't like somebody, right, betting against them. But hey, you got another round. Hopefully you don't bet against them here for round 2 because, hey, scoring conditions look perfect. And betting against anyone today is probably not the move. What's going on, Andrew? Who is the best spend up in value for Showdown? We'll talk through some of my favorites, but off the top of my head, Andrew, there's not really anyone that sticks out. This is the kind of slate where I'm going to be pretty contrarian about my exposure, especially for the Showdown side. It's a birdie fest, right? You're going to see a lot of random players popping for 7-8 under par rounds. So we'll talk through some of the guys I'm getting exposure to, but not really like any core plays, right? Like I'm not taking much chalk here for Friday. So gonna be a lot of guys I'm mixing in. How are the pins looking? I actually haven't looked at them yet, Carson. They didn't post them until after I was asleep last night. So we'll take a look at it later on. I'll let you know, Carson. Just got back from Hawaii. Winds get brutal in the evening. Perfect segue, Nick. It's like you did it on purpose, right? Let's talk a little bit about the weather, which, like you said, I think might get a little bit worse in the afternoon. So I was looking through some of the models last night in terms of your weather. Of course, extremely important from the prop side. And I was getting a little worried about this NAM model because I took a lot of unders on strokes, took a lot of overs on birdies there last night. And I was looking through the models here, and the last one, NAM, you can see is calling for extremely high winds, right? So that's pretty much all day. You've got some in the 20, 30 mile an hour range, but this model is likely incorrect because if we look at all the other ones here, ECM is calling for sub 10 mile an hour winds up until late in the day, like Nick was saying. Over here in GFS, it's pretty mild too, right? You can actually see in the middle of the day, it gets slightly less windy. And then towards the end, like Nick was saying, it kicks up a little bit, right? So I think that's probably pretty realistic. This icon model is calling for low winds until the afternoon. So once again, fitting that narrative. And then this Medio Blue model is a little bit flatter than the rest, but still, you're not seeing 20, 30 mile an hour winds. So this NEM model did kind of scare me a little bit, only because of that prop exposure I put in, but it didn't rain overnight. You can see that this model was calling for some rain. I checked all the local forecasts. There was no precipitation over there in Hawaii. So if this model was calling for rain, it's calling for much higher winds. I would venture to say, and again, I'm not a meteorologist, right? So I can't tell you this with 100% certainty, but it looks like this model is full of shit over here in Hawaii. So I'm not taking it very seriously. What I'm seeing with a lot of the other models, though, is that the winds look like they're getting slightly higher, right, towards the later tee times. And as per usual with the Showdown slate, guys, we're normally taking the morning guys to begin with, right? We want players on receptive greens when the greens aren't all scuffed up by the time they are in the afternoon. And furthermore, right, the guys that are playing in lower winds. So as per usual with the Showdown slate, right, if you're playing props, if you're playing over on the DFS side, ideally, you want guys going off early, right? So they can have those conditions and hopefully go out there and take advantage of it. Speaking of conditions, let's look at what happened in round 1, right? So there's not really waves out here when it comes to the playing time. We know that this is a small field event, right? No cut. There's not going to be a delineation between the AM and the PM wave. But what you can work off here is some of the earlier tee times had about a half a stroke advantage over the later tee times. Now, if this was a true, 120-man event where we had delineated waves, maybe this would be closer to a stroke, maybe even like a stroke and a half difference between the two tee time waves. But even as is, right, if we take some of the earliest tee times and we get that half a stroke advantage, it's not going to just win you money on its own. But if you're breaking ties, right, by taking the guy that's teeing off earlier, I don't think that's a bad way to handle this kind of slate. So we'll go through some of the players that are going off early that I think have some upside. But it wasn't a massive difference, right? Like sometimes we see a stroke and a half difference between the two waves. That wasn't really what we got there in round 1. Let's hop over to DFS. We'll talk through some of the ownership, some of the players that I'm getting to, and it's all about game theory, right? Anytime we have a showdown slate, especially for rounds 2 and 3, you want to be taking chances on players that are lower owned. And on this kind of slate, up top, the ownership is pretty spread out. All of these top end players played pretty well over there on Thursday, but down here in like the 9s and the 8s, there's a lot of egregious chalk. The 7K range is full of players that are way too highly owned. So as long as you're avoiding like a ticking time bomb like the Gala, right, who's 22% owned, Sanjay M, right, who's nearly 23% owned. I guess you could throw like a Morikawa in there, right, at nearly 30% ownership. If you're avoiding those mega chalky players, you're going to have a pretty good slate about it. So we'll talk through some of the options here that I'll be getting to as replacements. But it's all about game theory, right? Even more so than a main slate, you want to be taking lower owned players because in a 1-round sample size, anything can happen. And we see it happen all the time. Let's see where we at. Resubscribed for 2024. Love the content. Appreciate having you back, Bobcat. So welcome back. Contrarian works. And that's what's going to be a lot of contrarian stuff for me, especially down the 8 and 9K range. More of a humble brag than a segue. Hey, we knew what you were doing, Nick. But hey, enjoy it out there. It looked like an absolute blast. The pictures you sent me were absolutely stunning. Do I think Finau bounces back? Struggled with the putting, but around the green was good. Yeah, around the green, I don't really know if I care about that, right? Around the green is so random, especially for a player like Finau that's not known for it. I think he's got a chance to bounce back, that's for sure, especially because he wasn't doing anything with the putter. But the around the green stuff, probably not a big reason why I think that. Thagala got a bit of a gut now. Ooh, I got to slow down. I got to get more coffee in me, wake myself up here a little bit. But yeah, and if you see Tom Kim's looking pretty good. Like Tom Kim's slimmed down a little bit. He's still got a little baby fat on him, right? Let's not completely excuse Tom Kim yet, but Tom Kim's been working out. I saw that the announcers pointed that out yesterday, and I was like, good for him, right? He's the kind of player, by the way, that he's going to get so much bigger and stronger as his career goes on. So if you think Tom Kim's already good, just wait 2 or 3 years when the guy's hitting the ball like 320 through the air, hitting like 350-yard bombs. That's when Tom Kim is going to be an absolute problem for a lot of players out here. All right, let's talk through some of these players I'm getting to. So up top, the ownership is pretty spread out, right? I alluded to that just now. So if you're going to take like anyone from Homa up, right, a Cantlay, Xander, Hovland, or Scheffler, feel free, right? No one's out of check when it comes to the ownership. The players that I'd prefer taking are the ones that are teeing off earlier. So just to give you an idea, right, Scheffler's got a pretty early tee time. Hovland, right, is going off relatively early. Max Homa, right, is in the first half of tee times, whereas Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay are among the last tee times going out. So if I was going to choose any of these top end players, right, it would be a Scotty, a Hovland, a Homa for that matter. But, Morikawa, right, went off relatively early. So I don't know if I love that as much. Just try and take that slight half a stroke advantage. I mean, the ownership's pretty flat. You're not going to get cute. You're not going to differentiate yourself a whole bunch by taking any of these players up here. Just take your favorite. And honestly, right, when it's Scheffler and you're talking about Hovland's, Max Homa, right, who's on an absolute scorcher, you can make an argument for any one of these guys. I mean, Scotty, right, has looked a lot better with the putter. Hovland had his first really good round around Kapalua, so maybe he's able to build off of that. I understand the arguments for all of them, and frankly, I know who I'm taking, right? I have my, couple guys up here that I'm playing, but it's a toss-up, if anything, especially towards the top end of the board. A player I don't think is a toss-up, that I think is probably one of the better plays for Showdown. So, Andrew, I know we had your question before about like one of my favorite spend-ups. It's probably Matt Fitzpatrick, and a lot of you out there probably know I'm not a huge Matt Fitzpatrick fan. He's a little bit too nerdy for me. I don't know. He's a nice guy, I'm pretty sure, but he's not my favorite player. Let's just say that. But at $9,400, if you look at his shots gained metrics, which we're actually due right now, let me bring up Data Golf and show you guys why I'm intrigued with Matt Fitzpatrick. His stat profile is popping, as some people would say. So let me bring up Data Golf, show you guys what we're talking about, and let's find good old Matty Fitz. So here's Matty Fitz down here. Let's okay, so it has the categories at the top. So he gained 1.7 strokes putting. It's like, okay, it's not that bad, right? But in total, he lost 1.5 strokes on approach. That does not happen often for good old Matty Fitz. And he did nothing off the tee. Matty Fitz is the type of player who the putter can get hot, right? Like that's fine. He gained 1.72 strokes putting, but he's not going to lose strokes on approach every round he plays. He's very consistent. He's pretty good with the wedges. Off the tee, he was about a neutral because of a few errant drives. This is the sort of player, if he returns to his baseline on approach, he continues to putt like he putted yesterday, he could go out there, shoot 8-9 under par, right? Like you saw from some of the leaders. So Matt Fitzpatrick's a little bit of a streaky player. I think a lot of guys in round one are going to be rusty, right? Their first time back in quite some time. So let's find Tony Finau on here. I know somebody mentioned him before, but like, that's what you might have seen with Tony Finau, right? If you look at Tony Finau's stats, right, he lost 1.6 strokes on approach, right? Lost with the putter. That's pretty typical. So I don't know if I'm worried about that, but he gained 2.8 strokes around the green. That's not typical for Finau, right? He's not known as one of the best around the green players on tour. So I think a lot of people would look at this stat profile, especially like with Fitz, right? And kind of throw their hands up, say like, oh, I don't know if he's going to turn it around. If there's anyone that's going to turn it around, it's going to happen in round two, right? You have a round under your belt. You're able to shake off some of that rust. And at an event like this, I'm much more concerned with the player's long-term baseline than I am, a one-round performance. I think a lot of people out there are going to overreact to what we saw there on Thursday. And you got to remember, it's the first time that these guys have played for a while in a lot of cases. And on top of that, it's a one-round sample, right? Like even at events where players absolutely kill it, they'll go out there and struggle from time to time. So for me, I like a Matty Fitz. I like a guy like a Tony Finau that's going to come in at lower ownership and give you some of that leverage you're looking for. So you can see I've got Matty Fitz at about 12% ownership. I got Wyndham Clark down here that I'm playing at right around 7% ownership. I also have Tony Finau in my pool today. So he's $8,500 and right around 14%. I'd much rather take these sort of players than a super chalky Sungjae Im, right? Sungjae Im gained some strokes putting today. I should say yesterday out there in round one. Was pretty solid across the board, actually, pretty consistent. But Wyndham Clark is almost just as capable of going off at way lower ownership, right? He's 3 times lower owned than a Sungjae Im. And just to show you guys what I like with Wyndham lost strokes putting yesterday, and that is not something that happens, right? So if I bring up Wyndham Clark over here, had one of the worst rounds of the day, right? Shot 2 under par. He lost 2.3 strokes putting. That's not going to happen again. He gained on approach, okay, and then he lost off the tee, right? Something that's also very unlikely to happen again. So if he can go out there, just fix the hole with the putter, which again is normally one of his strengths out there in tour. A player like Wyndham Clark that's completely unowned could absolutely break the slate when it comes to Showdown. So sorry we're going back and forth so much, but I want to make sure we're referencing some of the stats that we're using. And at just 7% ownership, I love that sort of play for today. Sam Burns down here, $9,500. We're not going to go to the other sheet, but Sam Burns actually played pretty well, and that was despite losing strokes putting. So let me find the exact metrics for you on good old Sam Burnsy. So Sam Burns lost about 0.7 strokes putting today, or I should say yesterday, and gained with the approach play. So if he can go out there, do his normal thing with the irons, which looked pretty sharp out there on Thursday, and then do Sam Burns things on the greens, right? Go out there, prove his Bermuda Burns name. I mean, that's a ceiling performance, right? You could shoot 7-8 under par real easy out there. And those are the sort of players I'm getting to in this mid-tier range. So now that we go down to the sevens, you have some egregious chalk, right? We mentioned Sahith Theegala, who's getting a lot of attention and probably deservingly so. Even JT Poston is getting a little bit of ownership. Down towards the bottom end, you've got Luke List. He had a decent day, was chalk going into the week, so I'd expect him to get some steam. Tom Hoagie, same thing, played pretty well, was already pretty chalky for your main slate stuff. So he's going to see some ownership down there. And then Camilo Villegas, right? He's another one of those chalky pieces down here in the 6K range that I just don't want any piece of, right? These players are twice, sometimes 3-4 times higher owned than the players around them. In the case of Echeverria, right, he's 10 times higher owned than his fellow countrymen down there. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So I prefer taking some of the pivots, some of the players that have that upside. They can go out there and spike a putting performance or two, especially when it's a one-round sample, right? Like, these guys up top that are chalk, like a Sungjae, he was a good play this week. He was chalky heading into the week. Sahith Theegala was pretty popular too. For a 4-round sample, like I think they're slightly more okay being chalk, or like you can eat the chalk a little bit better for like a 4-round contest. But for a single round sample size, you've got to embrace the volatility of golf, right? Like random guys are going to go off. Just to look at the leaderboard from yesterday, We had Camilo shoot -8, right? Like no one saw that coming. Jason Day shot -8. Another player, you didn't see that coming. And if you did, I want to know because you probably know the lottery numbers for tonight too. Emiliano Grillo, right? -7 after a long layoff. That's pretty sweet for him. I guess that's probably it for the surprising performances. You know, Benny Yan, after his suspension, played pretty well. Chris Kirk, -6 round one. You're going to get a lot of these random pop rounds. And you know, if you think that Camilo is going to go -8 back to back, then let's play a head to head. That's all I'll say. And I'm a huge Camilo guy. Like I have, I'm going to have something in the background coming here in a week. That's a full driver of Camilo. He signed it for a charity auction he did down here for my mom's hospital. So I'm going to have that in the background. I like Camilo. Don't get me wrong. But if you think he's 5 times more likely to get there than Nick Hardy, let's play a head-to-head, and I'll give you even money odds on it. I'm not even going to ask for like 5-1 odds because he's 5 times higher owned. I'll take you even odds versus Nick Hardy. I'd rather have that side. Let's see what we got. Xander Group is teeing off right after Scotty. They are. I mean, unless they changed the tee time setup, I didn't think that was the case. I mean, let me bring it up. Because they were the first group out, the second group out yesterday. I can't imagine that was the case. I mean, I'll double check for you, though. Let's see. What are they rigging the tee times? You're right. They tee off the group after. They're like rigging the tee times. That's fucked. I mean, a lot of the other guys that are teeing off late were guys that went off early, like Patrick Cantlay, right? Going off with like Tommy Fleetwood and Tony Finau. That is something. All right. So I take that back about some of the guys up top, right? Like, obviously, if there's a one group difference, there's not going to be a massive difference in the scoring there, but we're not playing a huge edge anyways, right? Like we're mostly going after the game theory edge for a slate like this to begin with. So thank you for pointing that out. It's good to know, but yeah, it's like they're rigging the tee times now. Like they gave Tiger Woods a better tee time for some of the majors. They're doing the same thing. Does your new golf database have these live stats like Data Golf? It's not my website, so I can't claim everything on there, but it probably will at some point, Travis. And you're talking about Bet the Run, right? You playing Cam Young because of the mullet? No, I'm playing Cam Young because of his shots gained metrics, and I'll show you why, Nick. So the mullet helps, right? Obviously, he's a good look out there for Cam Young, but let me show you why I'm playing Cam Young. So Cam Young yesterday gained a little bit with the putter, which is fine, right? He was slightly positive there, but he gained 1.8 strokes on approach. He gained his stroke off the tee like he typically does, which is totally fine. And then he lost 2.3 strokes around the green. Now, he's not the best around the green player, right? Particularly on a super grainy Bermuda grass surface. He's one of the players that loses more to the field than most on grainy Bermuda. But at the same time, he's gaining in all 3 of the categories that we really care about. So we can kind of chalk this up to variance, right? You're not going to lose 2.4 strokes around the green very often out there on the PGA Tour. But at the same time, you know, he's doing things well that we're looking for. So I like the shots gained metrics, but hey, the mullet doesn't hurt either. It's when I saw that, I had to laugh, right? You had Sam Burns with the mullet at the Ryder Cup, and then now we've got, even in the regular season, we've got him with the mullet. Cam Young has a lush mullet. Yeah, he's been working on that for a few weeks at this point, right? You can kind of tell out there. That thing is a beauty. It's a 9 out of 10, we'll say. All right, let's talk about some of the plays down here in the 7K range. So I like a Cam Davis. Cam Davis, same kind of thing. Did not have the best round yesterday. I bet him for an over on birdies, and he ended up having the worst round of the day, but he's more than capable of bouncing back. He lost 4 strokes on approach. You hate to see that. He lost around the green. He lost with the putter in round 1, but we've seen crazier things happen, right? We've seen guys go out there, absolutely stink it up out there on Thursday, and then turn around and have one of the rounds of the day. So a Cam Davis, I'm still willing to get to in some of my contests. And let's double check on his tee time, because that whole Xander thing is throwing me off. It's as if they're trying to give the guys they want to be in contention like the better tee times, which good old Patrick Reed has accused the tour of about 1,000 times. I don't know. I think he has a case right here. Let's say that. So let's bring up these tee times. When's Cam Davis going off? Should be relatively early. He's one of the later tee times. Yeah, you can see he's going off at 1:09 p.m. Like Fitz, right? Went off relatively late. He's going off early. What is going on with this Xander Tom Kim group? They were the second group out. So this is what I don't understand, by the way, guys. They were the second group out. And this Brian Harmon group was like the third group out yesterday. Why the hell are they getting a middle of the road tee time? And why the hell are these guys at the end, like Aberg, for example, just getting absolutely fucked? They had a tea time in the middle of the pack from round one. Cam Young too, right? Like he was one of the middle of the pack kind of tea times. Why the hell are they being shafted with the later tea times again? So they had a middle of the pack tea time yesterday, and now they're the last groups off on Friday. I don't know. I don't have enough investment in any of these players to really care, to be frank. I haven't bet any of them outright that are down here towards the bottom of the board. But if I did, I'd be pretty pissed off. Let's just say that much. I feel like that's not supposed to be how they're handling that with the tea times. It's the first time I've seen that. Let's say that much. All right. We also got Adam Svensson. I like Svenny was a gainer on approach in round one. Only shot -3, right? So he's going to be relatively low owned. So if you're looking for a player that's striping it, can go out there, maybe fill it up with the putter. He fits that for you. Akshay Bhatia, he had a pretty middling round one, so his ownership's going to stay in check. But what you like about Akshay is his streakiness, right? He's a player that is very hit or miss with the putter, which for Showdown is kind of what we're looking for. And then is electric with the irons pretty much every round. And then our last play is Patrick Rogers, who once again is another player that lost with the putter. And kind of like a Sam Burns is not typical, right? He's one of the better putters in the field. You can see he gains about 1/3 of a stroke per round on Bermuda putting. And he's 4.6% owned, right? He's half the ownership of a Camilo Villegas. So yeah, if anyone out there wants to take a head-to-head between Camilo and Patrick Rogers, I'm all ears. I will take the Patrick Rogers side 99 out of 100 times. So let's talk about how some lineup construction now. We'll hop over to DraftKings. If you have any questions about a specific player, feel free to go ahead and let me know. And then afterwards, we're going to talk props. So we'll go through this pretty quickly. Actually, let me bring up DraftKings so that we can talk about some lineup construction. And then we'll hop into the prop side, which we're going to look at pins. We're going to look at different sites, obviously try and find some value and really try and dig in because the pin locations are something that I haven't even looked into yet. So we're going to spend some time there and try and find an edge to exploit. So let me bring up DraftKings. We'll build a lineup or two together. I'll give you guys an idea, right, of how I'm putting together my builds. And then cycle into the prop side. So before we do that, let's go over any questions. Hi, first time playing golf. First off, welcome to the golf side. We're all kind of wackos out here. Here's your team. You've got Finau, Aberg, English, Spieth, and Fleetwood, and Straka. So you've got those 6 players. I'm not looking good at the moment. Do you think you have a chance, or is this lineup dead? You are certainly not dead if you've built that lineup. You've got 4 rounds to work with. So a lot of times, right, in PGA DFS, there's a cut after 2 rounds. That is not the case this week. So you're going to have all 4 rounds to work with. Anytime you have a course that's this easy, you're going to see a lot of scoring out there. And I mean, you took Finau, right, he's had a little bit of a rough start. I mean, even Aberg, right, a little bit of a rough start. I've seen crazier things happen. I mean, Straka started off all right. Spieth, right, is playing pretty well for you. I think you've got a chance. Yeah, and a Spieth lineup is never dead. Hey, if Spieth comes out of nowhere and wins the golf tournament, you're going to cash that lineup, right? So you've got a lot of time left. If you were in a cut situation, I would say you'd be a little bit more behind the 8 ball, but not so much right now. I think you should be all right. All right, let's talk through a few lineups together. So when you're building lineups here for Showdown, right, I'm all about being contrarian, right? Like for main slate stuff, I'll take some chalk from time to time. Out here in Showdown, it is all about taking the pivots. So if I'm starting a lineup with a Max Homa, maybe we go down here and we throw in a Wyndham Clark as a second man in. You could throw in even a Tony Finau into this kind of lineup. We're still at about $7,700 remaining. We have 3 pivots in our lineup. So if you wanted to take a chalky player, I mean, you could. Like if you really wanted to take Thigala, you could take him in this kind of lineup. I have no interest, right? I'm going pivots at all 6 spots. So we could throw in a Sam Burns, right? I mentioned that I really like him today. A Cam Davis, and then your favorite player at $7,300. Of course, guys, right? DraftKings doesn't like when you give out 6 full players in a lineup, but you get the idea, right? All of these guys are going to be sub 15% owned, except for Homa, right? Who's average ownership up for the top end players. You're going to get 93% leverage on a Wyndham Clark. You're going to get like 80% on a Finau, close to that out there for Sam Burns, a Cam Davis. This lineup is going to have the leverage that you need today, right? If your guys hit, you're going to have a relatively low-owned player out there. On top of that, you're not going to duplicate yourself, right? We know that with this kind of combination of players. And given the kind of skill sets, and how they played in round one, a lot of these guys are due for a bounce back, right? Like Sam Burns should putt a lot better today, right? Cam Davis is not going to lose 8 strokes to the field once again. That's just not going to happen out there for round 2. Wyndham Clark, right, is probably not going to lose like 2 strokes putting. If these kind of players get back to what they're typically, capable of doing, I absolutely love our chances with these kind of players. So it's not that exact combination that I like. It's that kind of idea, right? Forcing in players that are going to be differentiated to the field, especially guys that are due for that bounce back performance. So that's how I'm handling my lineups. If I was playing cash, I might be a little bit more willing to take some chalk. And I think if I was playing a cash lineup, I'd be real studs and duds about it. I would try and take as many of these 9K players as possible. So you can throw a Spieth into a cash lineup. Morikawa, right, is still well too cheap. So I think in cash, those two are pretty easy spots to get to. Down here in the 8K range, let's throw Keegan Bradley, I think is a really good cash play. You could throw somebody like Lucas Glover into cash. Like the main reason being is that he's too cheap, right, for this kind of slate. So cash is something that I'm not going to play out here for Friday. But if you're playing cash, you can take a little bit more chalk. And I'm a lot more worried about points per dollar value when it comes to cash than I am for GPPs, right? GPPs, we're all about the ceiling. We're trying to get as many of those pot performances as possible. Whereas for a cash game, we want it the high floor, right? We want to finish in that top 50%, which is why I like some of the salary saving kind of plays just a little bit more. Let's see. Any questions for DFS? If not, we're going to hop into props. Let's see. Of course. Any bets on the book? We'll touch on those during props. But right now, Zach, nothing that I've entered, but we'll take a look, right? In a pool where you pick somebody after each round, we can only use them once all year. Who do we got? Oh, crap. That's a heck of a contest. You're going to have to use a lot of golfers, right? Or is it only just after round 1? So, like, you only pick one a week? I'm assuming it's the latter, right? You're only picking one golfer a week, but you're picking them after round 1. Let me look at the leaderboard for you and give you an answer. So it's a one and done situation, right? It's a really high purse event. So I'm assuming you're making your money based on the money list, right? Based on the kind of money they're making on any given week. You want a stud because it's a no-cut event, because it's got such a high purse. I mean, a Xander, right? A Xander would be a fine choice. They're at -7. You could throw a Scotty into the picture, right? He had a really good round 1. I think he's probably going to improve here in round 2. So you could throw Scotty into there. Yeah, one of the elites, man. I would maybe a Colin Morikawa, right? Because of his track record around here. I'd take a pretty chalky name if I was out there in that spot. Any matchups I like on Hard Rock? Not sure yet, Tanner, but we'll look. Kind of like what Zach was saying. Brendan Todd continues to play well. I hope so. I would love that. I played him out there with a bunch of my lineups. But hey, it's golf. You're going to see a lot of ups and downs with these players. What did Todd shoot? He shot like -6 in round 1. He gained around the green. He gained with the putter. He also gained with the approach play and lost off the tee. So very much so on brand for Brendan Todd. So it would not surprise me at all if he went out there and continued that for round 2. He's not playing, in an outrageous fashion, right? He didn't go out there and gain like 10 strokes approach. He's kind of doing his thing. So yeah, I do think he can continue it. Makes a lot of sense. Thoughts on Svensson and Rogers? Svensson's hitting the ball well. So I kind of alluded to that earlier, but look at this with Svensson. He gained 2.4 strokes on approach and then lost 3 strokes putting. So if you're looking for somebody that can perhaps bounce back in the putting category, I think that he makes quite a bit of sense. And who was the other one? Let me see. Rogers, that's right. And same thing with Rogers. Same thing with Patrick Rogers. He did not putt well here in round 1. Let's see. Where's his he didn't play that horribly though. Where's he at? There's so many names on here that it's hard to find him. There he is. Right. He gained 1.8 strokes on approach. He lost nearly 3 strokes with the putter. Unlikely to continue, right? Especially for somebody that in many circles is considered an elite level putter. Let's hop over to Underdog. We'll start to talk some of this stuff on this side, which we're going to look at the pins too, right? I mentioned that before. I think they posted them on Twitter. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll double check. Let's see. PGA Tour communications, and there we go. We've got pin locations. So let's dive in, shall we? Yeah, if it's the latter, by the way, it's like a Xander or Scotty for me. You could throw Spieth in there. I'm a good old Spieth lover, but yeah, probably one of those two. He surprised you about with the -8. Surprised me too, Wilson dog. Excuse me there. Yeah, I bet Eric Cole against him in a 3-ball, and he got absolutely destroyed. So yeah, surprised me and you both, Wilson. But tip of the cap to him. Respect where respect's due. He's like I said, he's one of the most classy guys that I've actually met on tour, and you can't meet a better guy and a better story. If you guys know anything about his daughter and all of that kind of stuff, you'll know why a lot of people root for him and whatnot. And I'm one of the people. So, hey, if I lose money to Camilo, it's okay. If there's anyone I'm okay getting, my ass kicked by, it's Camilo Villegas. Let's say that much. All right, let's talk through some of this. So we've got the pin locations up. We've got shot tracker up. So we're going to go through the different slopes on each green. We're going to talk about, whether they're easy or hard pins and get an idea for this year. So we'll touch back on the weather too. We'll go back to that in case anyone's just hopping in, and get ready to enter some props. So over here for the first pin, it's 6 off the right. It's, I guess, towards the middle of the green. So if we bring up, actually, you got to get the hole 1 first. That would help. Let's get the hole 1, and it's over here on the right. So it looks pretty flat. There's a slope to the left that you can play off of. This is a relatively long hole. So I would say that the pin location for round 2 is going to play pretty similar to round 1, right? Round 1, it was a little bit further back. And then what we're going to have here for round 2. So maybe it's slightly easier because it's shorter, but I think it'll play to about the same kind of difficulty. So not much to say there with hole number 1. I don't think all that much is going to change there. Hole number 2, the pin is now in the front rather than being in like the back right. It's 6 paces off the right. It's 10 paces on, which has it about right here where my cursor is. You guys can see where I'm moving that right there. Probably a little bit easier than round 1, but once again, it's not going to change very much, right? It's just a distance factor of maybe a change of, 10, 15 yards. And it's at a similar spot of the green, right? All of the slope goes from left to right. So if you were to hit a ball that kind of lands where this 1 is, you could probably roll it up to near the pin, right? You're going to get some release out there. It's going to move from left to right. Maybe slightly easier than what we had for Thursday. Let's look at hole number 3 now. So hole number 3 is in the back left compared to like this middle left right here. Another similar pin. Wow. It's like they just took the pins and they moved them like 5 yards in any direction. And now they're giving us this action for round 2, but very similar, right? It might be slightly more tucked over this bunker to the left, but with the slope going right to left, with the slope going back to front on this sort of complex, it's probably going to play pretty similar to round 1. Sound like a broken record, but it's what they're giving us right now. Let's take a look at what we're doing with hole 4. So hole 4 is middle left. It is 6 paces off the left and about 15 paces on. And in terms of your slopes, there's a little false front here. So that actually might be slightly more difficult than what we had for round 1. But we kind of had the same situation for round 1, right? If you look over here, there's another false front in front of where this pin was. If anything, I think people might be able to hit a draw, right, and get stuff to roll down this hill towards the pin. So I'd say hole 4 is probably easier than what we had for Thursday. Let's go to hole 5 now. So hole 5 is a front right pin location. You can see it's 10 paces on and 5 paces off of the right, which puts it at right about here. It's an easier pin than round 1. Let's see. So let's go back to like the fairway view so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. So they're going to be hitting shots from either over here near the 1 or over here down in the bottom right of the fairway. It's an easier shot from over there to the right. So the pin location they're going with, let me figure this out. Is it front right from the fairway? Because you guys can see where I'm getting into the confusion here, right? It's a circular green. I don't know which way it's oriented. Is it oriented like this, or is it oriented like this? Or let's see, let's find the shape. So the shape has the big broad part at the top. So it's oriented like this. This is the picture we're seeing on this slide. And the pin is in the front right, which means the pin is like right here. Probably pretty similar to round 1, right? You're hitting a 3-wood into here, maybe a long iron into this par 5. So you're probably not going to stop the ball near this front right pin. But at the same time, it plays a little bit shorter, right? Any shots that are missing over here to the left have an easier up and down than what you're going to have back there to the back right pin. So, yeah, pretty neutral pin, we'd say. probably pretty similar to round one. Let's see, hole number 6. Let's see, hole 6 is a back right pin. So it's up there on the other side of the false front, which will actually make it play a little bit easier. We'll play a little bit longer than what we had here for round one. But hey, this pin in round one, by the way, is an absolute Looney Tunes pin. It is clown show that they went out there and even made this a pin location for round one. If you guys were watching this, the only way you could even get it close to the pin is if you drove it the whole way down to the bottom of this hill, which is like a 400-yard drive. So anyone that landed up here, right, this is like a 50-yard pitch shot. Let's actually see it exactly, right? It's a 53-yard pitch shot from where Sahith Thagala hit this. Because of the slopes on this green, and the slopes aren't even just on the green. Off the green here, this little fairway area is sloped even more than what they have here on the green. Any shot that you try to hit close to this pin ended up down here to the right, right? So if you look at where Sahith hit his ball, right, he had a freaking 50-yard chip, right? Which normally we're hitting the ball to 2-3 feet, right? We're making a birdie and getting out of there. He ended up the whole way down there. And if you guys are watching ESPN Plus, you guys would have seen guys like Xander had the same thing happen. Cantlay, all of those early starters, right? We're getting absolutely screwed out here by the slopes. So the fact now that the pin is going to be in this back right, I think it's going to play a lot easier, right? I mean, guys are still going to be driving it down towards the green. They're going to be able to use the slope over here and get the ball close to the hole as opposed to getting swept away 40, 50 feet away from the hole. So hole 6, kind of like what we had there, I think with hole 3, should play slightly easier than what we saw for round 1. Let's look at hole 7. Hole 7 is a back left pin location. So it's going to play to a similar distance for round 1 and pretty similar pin location. Not much to say there. It's a similar depth of the green. Slopes aren't all that bad. Probably plays to the same average. Let's see. Hole number 8 is a back left pin, which is, again, pretty close to where they had it here for Thursday, right? It was a front middle pin. Now it's a front left pin. Probably doesn't change all that much. This is normally, guys, we see a lot more diversity with these pin locations, and it's just not the case with this. Let's see. This one's like a middle right pin, which again isn't even all that far from where they had the pin for round 1. Probably plays pretty similar again. Let's see. Hole 10. Hole 10 is a back left pin. It is tucked way back here, but once again, you have the slopes kind of helping you here. So this pin for yesterday was pretty easy to access, but because of the little slopes around the pin location, it's probably the same thing here for Friday's action. Let's see, hole 11. Hole 11 is a middle back pin. Let's see the slopes on this. It's a short hole, so they'll be hitting like a 9-iron in here, and yeah, not all too different than what they had there on Thursday. Hole 12 is a front right pin. So this is another shorter hole and probably plays easier than what you saw for Thursday. It's a shorter distance, right? You're going to have a smaller club in and it's still wide open, kind of like we just had for Thursday. Hole number 13 is another short par 4. And it's a front left pin location, which, again, is going to be easier. So if anything, what we've noticed so far, guys, just to kind of summarize, is every pin has kind of been the same as round 1, if not easier. And it's the same case here, right? We have a front pin location. You can use this little backstop to get the ball close. As long as you don't miss and hit this slope going left, you're going to be able to get this thing within 4 or 5 feet. So once again, another birdie look, even more so than what we had for Thursday. 14 is a front left pin. So it's over here on the left. I'd say slightly harder than what we had, but it's a drivable par 4, right? This is a 290-yard par 4. The miss today, right, because the pin location on 14 is over here to the left, the miss is going to be the miss in this right bunker, right? If you miss in this right bunker, you're going to have a lot of room to get it to the pin, though there's a little bit of a downslope outside of the bunker, which is going to propel your shots forward. The pin's not here at number 3, right? It's over here way on the left side. So you're going to have plenty of space to stop the ball after it gets out of the bunker. And I'd say it's similar, right? Because yesterday you could do the same thing out of this left bunker, right? This left bunker, you had enough room to hit a shot close to that pin. It'll just be opposite today, right? People will be trying to hit it in that right bunker. Let's see, hole number 15. Let's take a look. And we're almost done with these pins. I know it takes some time, but it's important, right? So this 15's a par 5. It is a back right pin. It'll play harder than round 1. This is one of the few pins that I will, expect to see maybe play to a slightly harder scoring average, but I also don't think it's going to be too out of hand. The pin is above the slope rather than below the slope like you saw from round 1, but it's a par 5, and it's a reachable par 5, so you're still going to see plenty of birdies there. Hole 16 is a front right pin. A lot easier than round 1, actually. So in round 1, you had a little bit of a backstop to work with. It's the same thing for today, except it's playing shorter, right? And it's already a short hole at 376 yards. So you might see a few players try and sniff it towards the top of this green, particularly if it's playing downwind. But yeah, another hole where you're looking to take advantage. Let's see. Let's get it to go to hole 17 now. It looks like it's lagging on me. All right, there we go. So hole 17 is another front pin. I'd actually say that this front pin on this hole might be slightly harder than what we're used to seeing. The only reason being is that you're hitting a long shot in here, right? Like the third shot for Sahith here. Well, that's not correct. It definitely wasn't that far. How far did he hit his drive out? To about 146 yards. So unless you get all the rollout in the world like a Sahith Theegala, you're probably going to have a long shot in here. But a lot of players yesterday were way further back in the fairway. I mean, even Scotty Scheffler had 200 yards into this green. So a front pin location can actually be a little bit tough, right? When you have a 200-yard iron shot, it's much harder to stop that golf ball. So yeah, I think it's pretty neutral, all things said. But if you're somebody that's not getting all that rollout off the tee, it might actually play slightly harder. And then the last pin is 18, which is a middle left pin, which compared to what you had in round 1 isn't going to change all that much. So they had the pin the whole way in the back left. Now it's going to be here in the middle left, which probably makes it a little bit easier to get the ball closer. You can see all the slope on the screen, right, is going to take a ball that starts on the front right and try and take it to where the pin location is. You had a lot of people yesterday that actually got it up on the green surface, putting from like the middle of the green here, right? So they had like 40, 50 foot putts back to this back left. If it's a middle left pin, those are like 15, 20 foot putts. And I think you probably see a few of them made today. So round 1, you had a lot of birdies here at hole 18. That's going to be the case once again. You're going to see plenty of birdies out there. But I do think you're going to see more eagles out there for hole 18, because rather than having 40, 50 foot putts for eagle, it's going to be closer to like 20 feet. And you're not going to be putting over this big hill, right? If you guys remember last night when guys were finishing their rounds, they were hitting long, just super slopey putts out here on hole 18. A lot of people were getting them close, right? And we're making them for the birdie. Now it's going to be a 15-footer that's legitimately makeable. So in general, right, just going through all these pins, we had 1, maybe 2 that were slightly harder, but like 4 or 5 that were easier. And the rest were all pretty much the same. If the weather stays down like it's supposed to, we're going to see a scoring average of probably 4 under par again. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if the winds were a little bit higher today than what we saw there for Thursday. But with the pin locations, I mean, seemingly being a little bit easier out here, maybe it makes up for that, right? Maybe we still see that 4 under par scoring average, which would make this an absolute print fest for the prop side. All right, that was a lot. That was a lot of talking there. Let me get some coffee in me, and now let's talk some props. And any questions down there? Let's see. Theegala surprised you, even though you loved him from main slate? Yeah, I agree, man. He's a very volatile player, right? He's the kind of guy who's either on or off, and I love him for Showdown for that reason. So I played him for main slate. I didn't take him for first-round leader. That would have been a pretty sweet bet, but that's kind of his thing, right? He's either really on or really off. What is my most prized item behind me? So there's a couple ways you could look at that, right? There's stuff that's worth more than the others, but in terms of what means the most to me, it's that little plaque back there. It's over my right shoulder. It's below the shoes. You might be able to see it there. That is my dad's racing bib from when he used to be a professional motocross rider. So my dad, used to be a ranked motocross rider. When I was growing up, we ended up owning a motorcycle shop, and that is his like I said, racing bib from when he won the national championship. So that's the thing that means the most to me, no doubt about it. But I've got some good memorabilia back there. We've got a ball signed by Mr. October back there, a ball signed by Roberto Clemente, which obviously is it's up there, right? I like that quite a bit. But yeah, it's my dad's bib. That's definitely the most important thing to me. Thank you, sir. Gonna go Scotty and hope to start with a bang. Sounds good. Yeah, and hey, Scotty Scheffler, right? You're taking him at a large purse kind of event. It's probably going to go well. So I like that. Who we taking for DFS? So I did a whole breakdown on that, Dylan. You might want to just scroll back a little bit. I've got a whole breakdown on guys I'm taking, but yeah, a lot of contrarian plays, Dylan. A lot of guys at low ownership. Don't give Luke PTSD about Pickett helmet fumble. Oh my God. Thank you for reminding me, Travis. Yeah. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, last year someone asked about the stuff behind me, and I did like a whole tour of the stuff, went through some of it. And yeah, we dropped the Pickett helmet, and it was in a nice glass case. So that was quite a day. How phenomenal and sentimental, that's awesome. Of course, yeah. And it kind of depends on what you're asking for, right? If you're talking about monetary value, there's some stuff there that's worth some money, but that's worth more money than anyone could put out there, right? All his family's going nuts when he hit a shot was great. Yeah, I heard that in a whole 18. He made a birdie and his family's going crazy. Yeah, great story. And they go everywhere, man. I was at the Valspar Championship. He played okay that week. He made it to the weekend. Every time he hit a shot, I mean, they went wild. That's the kind of support you need out there to be a tour pro. It doesn't hurt, let's say that much. So, all right, over here at Underdog is where I got almost all my exposure. And unfortunately, they bumped the entire board. I mean, the value was there. That's for damn sure last night. But there should still be a few hanging pieces of value that we can take. So one that immediately draws my attention is this Max Homa under. And just to give you guys an idea of why I really like some of the unders today, I'm going to end up unplugging my mic typing here. So if that happens, bear with me. Oh my God, where's Homa at? There he is. Oh, there's Hoagie. There's Max Homa. And did I unplug my mic? I need to double check. No, we're good. Max Homa, right? He's down at 67.5 on FanDuel here. He's slightly juiced towards the over, but he's an entire stroke lower, right? And last night, they had Max Homa at the 68.5 mark. He got bumped down to 67.5. At 68.5, he was minus 170 towards the under, right? So a lot of times when people are looking for plus EV props, right, they're looking for stuff that's juiced between minus 140, minus 140 for a two-man card. It's a minus 170 odds for the under. And if we go over here to Draftkings, they should have him posted as well. So let's find Max Homa over here. There he is. Okay, so he's at 67.5 once again, an entire stroke lower, right? So let's go ahead and throw Max Homa in there. And let's find an over for birdies that we can take. That's the way that I did it. Here we go. Lucas Glover over on birdies. So just give you an idea why that one makes a lot of sense. Lucas Glover is on these sites, and you can see Glover is at 69.5 strokes, right? So if he shot 69, by the way, right, that'd be shooting 4 under par. He's minus 165 for that, right? So you could take this 70 strokes. I mean, that's another line you could take an under on. That would be pretty sweet. The unfortunate part is you can't take 2 unders on strokes on Underdog, right? So we have to try and take an over on birdies. And at 4.5 birdies, that's ridiculous value. And just to show you a comparison here, he's a pretty similar player to a Justin Rose. I think that's a fair comparison there. They have Justin Rose at 5.5 birdies. They've got guys, your lowest number on here, right? Brian Harmon, Keegan, right, are all at 5.5 birdies. Lucas Glover is a better birdie maker than a lot of the guys down there at 5.5. He's not at 4.5 over here in Underdog. So if you're going to enter anything right now, you can only really do 2-man slips unless you want to anti-correlate with your Underdog exposure. But there's quite a bit of value to be had here. So we'll throw those 2 in there. And let me throw you another slip too. We'll give you guys 2. So you could take an over on Hideki birdies. I didn't take that. I had his strokes at 69.5. But even at 5 birdies, that would make some sense. Let's see. See if we can find 2 more props. I had Cantlay and Xander at 68.5. Obviously, those were bumped though, so I'm going to avoid them now. Let's see. What's Wyndham Clark's strokes at? That's probably a value at 69.5. Let me find it. Wyndham Clark. There he is, right? He's at 68.5, right? So he's an entire stroke lower. And he's only minus 130 towards the over. Let's go to FanDuel. Let's find him on here now. Wyndham, who should be playing the Wyndham Championship at some point. It would make too much sense, right? Yeah, he's at 68.5 strokes here, and it's the same thing, right? He's slightly juiced towards the over. So let's throw Wyndham in there at 69.5, who I don't think I played actually. So we might be able to enter a slip here myself that I don't have in yet. So let's throw Wyndham in there at 69.5, and let's find a birdie over, which I took Ricky, but it was at 5 birdies. So now he's at 5.5. Yeah, by the way, every prop I entered, with the exception, I think, of like 2, got bumped. So they clearly realized their mistake. Sam Burns, once again, I took him at 5, but now he's at 5.5. Yeah, a lot of these birdies got bumped up. I'd still lean over on them, right? I think it's going to play easy today, right? 5.5 birdies for Corey Connors, right? That's the same number we have on Prize Picks. Just with the value, actually, let's throw in Hideki, right? You could throw in Hideki over 5 birdies here. So this kind of slip would make plenty of sense. Again, just to kind of circle back and show you guys the projections on Prize Picks. I think they even have Hideki up at 5.5, right? So you can see, right, you're getting that 0.5 difference right there. And then with Wyndham Clark, I think they have him at 68.5, right? If they even have him posted, he might not have a strokes number. Yeah, so they don't have him up for strokes, but on the sports books, right, he's an entire stroke lower on that side. So that's what I would stick to over there on Underdog. Try and find some of the line discrepancies compared to the books, also compared to what you have on Prize Picks. And that's what I did. I have 7 slips in as of right now. I'm going to think about entering this one myself. I mean, just personally, like this Wyndham Clark line is just fine. I would be absolutely sick getting there. This Hideki prop at 5, though, I think it's like a 60-65% hit rate. So if you're looking for a plus EV prop, it definitely checks that. I can tell you that much. Like he projects much closer to 6 birdies. It's just going to be figuring out whether I want to take the plunge on it. I already have just to show you guys, I got a bunch of slips in, right? My limit's $100 on a slip, so that's all I can enter out here for golf. And I've got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 slips in. So we don't need to force any more exposure. Let's say that much. We've got a lot in there. Let's hop over to Prize Picks, where I actually don't have anything in yet, and we'll see if we can find something. This board is priced lower. That's why you have a lot of the different pricing discrepancies, right? Like a Xander, who was at 68.5 on Underdog. He's down here at 67.5. We'll have to see if we can find anything on this side. So we'll go down to chat, see what's down there, and then try and find some stuff over there. Let's see. Oh, we already went over those. Sweet. Okay. If you have any prop questions, any DFS stuff, let me know. But let's go through this Prize Picks board then. So on Prize Picks, like, I'm not going to take any of these strokes or birdie props. I'll tell you why, right? They're worse lines than what we have in Underdog. And I don't want to be betting against players. I think they're going to torch this course again. It's what we see around Kapalua. So let's look at birdie or better matchups, and let's look at greens and pars, right? Because we know the lines for birdies and strokes aren't going to be as favorable as what you could get elsewhere. So in terms of birdie or better, there was someone last night telling me about this Sanjay over on birdie or better matchup, and it looks like they ripped it off the board. So that's kind of unfortunate. It was Sanjay M versus Vincent Norman that looked like a little bit of an edge. And apparently they agreed over there on Prize Picks because they completely took it off the board. So if we're looking at these matchups, just with first glance, like maybe I would take an over against Camilo. By the way, Camilo gained over 7 stroke short game yesterday. So I have a hard time thinking that happens again. Yeah, it's probably an Underdog slate, guys. You guys know I'm not a huge birdie or better matchup type of player. And if I was going to take anything here, this pars or better kind of prop, we took an over on Patrick Cantlay yesterday. I think you could probably go right back to the well there. The birdie average, or say the bogey average for the field, was about 1.43 per round. So for somebody like Patrick Cantlay, who's the second best bogey avoider in the field, only behind a Scotty Scheffler, makes him a pretty decent piece of value. So let's go ahead and throw him in there. You could go with one of these green props. Like if I was going to take one, it'd probably be a Corey Connors. And we could take a matchup. But these matchups are, again, I don't love matchups. Let's say that much. I play them when they're huge discrepancy, but there's not usually that many big discrepancies. Again, you could take this power one, but like, I don't know. If you guys have to play anything on Prize Picks, you could take these 3, but I'm probably not going to do it myself. Let's just say that much. So let's see. Any last second stuff we need to go over? Any birdie matchups? Here, I'll take a second look for you, man. But like this Seamus Power one, like is like a lean. It's like not even something I like that much. Yeah. Hey, I'll give you that one. Yeah, the Seamus over Camilo is probably the best matchup I see on the board. But frankly, I'm probably not going to play it myself. That's all we've got here for the round 2 stream. I've got a get going here to do some of my chores around the house before play starts. But I appreciate all the support on the channel. Everyone's stopping by, getting ready here for round 2's action. Go ahead, smash that like button on the way out of here. We're doing the same thing for rounds 3 and 4, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss those when they drop. And yeah, one more question: Cantlay versus Aberg. So I'd probably stay away from that one. I think Aberg, great. I look at him like a top 5, a top 10 player in the world. And then Cantlay, the same kind of thing, right? He played well in round 1. Yeah, that one's a toss-up to me. If you're going to lean anything, you lean Cantlay, right, because of how he played in round 1, right, compared to Aberg in round 1. But Aberg's the type of guy that, I'm projecting him to make 6.5, 7 birdies today. So if Cantlay is going to beat that from Aberg, right, he's going to have to make 7, 8 birdies, which is a tough ask. At that stage, right, I would rather just take Cantlay for like an over on birdies, which they don't have him up over here on Prize Picks. But, maybe you go over to Underdog and you enter him there. But that's all I've got, boys. I appreciate all of you guys out there. Let's take down a GPP or two. Let's go out there, cash out on some prop slips, and have ourselves a great start to the weekend.